Hey y'all, welcome to Kamira's Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how I take this big baby right here and I'm going to turn it into all of these meals. Now guys, feeding your family doesn't have to be expensive. It can be super affordable and you can do a lot with this big old pork loin. Now, you watch one of my recent videos, you will see that I did a Costco haul where I picked up this thing right here now, okay? Now, I'm gonna show you what I do with this because y'all, this is one big hunk of meat, all right? So let's go ahead and get into it. I am going to take this big old pork loin and I am going to open this in the sink. Now, this package is full of all types of juice and honey, I do not want it all over the place. So what I'm going to do is open it up, give it a rinse, and I'm going to butcher it according to the instructions on the package. Now, y'all, I am not a professional butcher. I am just a girl in her kitchen cooking up food and trying to butcher a little something. All right, so if you're a professional, give me some tips down in the comment section. Now, once I have rinsed off this pork loin, I am going to take this and I'm going to dry it off at the side. And of course, if you use some meat in your sink, go ahead and bust out them bubbles and clean your sink up real good, okay? Dry off your pork loin really well just to make sure that there's no residual water. This is also going to make the cutting process a lot safer. And now this thing is actually too big for my board. So first thing I'm going to do is try to cut off the ends so that I can get better chops and so this would fit better on my board. So I'm going in about 6 to 7 inches. I'm going to cut down with my butchering knife. Y'all, this thing just cuts through meat like butter, baby. Okay, go and get you one. I'm going to link it in the description box. So I'm going to take a roast from both of these ends. So I'm going in 7 inches or so on both sides. And then I'm going to use that center cut to make the loin chops. You can do whatever thickness that you desire for your loin chops. I like about 3/4 to 1 inch because pork loin is actually a pretty lean cut of meat. So if you make them too slim, they're going to dry out super quickly before you can get a nice sear. Now, a few of them on the end came out a bit thinner, more like 1/2 inch, which is fine because my first recipe is going to be featuring some pork chops that you can make if you want to use some of the thinner cuts of pork loin. After I butchered up all the meat, y'all, so this is all the cuts, I got 2 big roasts and quite a few pork chops. Now, those pork chops are about $6 a pound in the store. Now you're only paying $2 a pound because you butcher them yourself. I feel like we're already winning. For my first recipe, I'm going to show you how to make the crispiest and crunchiest pork chops. So I'm going to take those pork pieces that I cut on the thinner side. I'm going to wrap them in plastic wrap and just beat them with a rolling pin. Honey, I do not have a meat mallet and I was not going to buy one just for this recipe. But if you already have one, go ahead and do it, okay? Now, beating out the pork chop is not only going to make it thinner, it's also going to help tenderize this meat, okay? I'm going to season these pork chops lightly with a little bit of this buttery steakhouse as well as some lemon pepper. You don't have to get too complicated with the seasoning here. Remember, this is a thin cut of meat. So if you do too much, you can easily over season it. But I'm not going to add any seasoning to the flour or the breadcrumbs I'm going to use. So just be conscious, okay? You just want your meat to look coated. And you definitely want to season both sides because you're going to eat both sides. We don't want any bland food. While the pork is frying, the fat band will start to shrink. And if you do not snip it, what's going to happen is the pork's going to start to curve up and you're not going to be able to fry it evenly on both sides. So what you want to do is take some scissors and just make some little cuts along the fat band. But don't take off that fat band. You need it, honey. Trust me, you need that little bit of fat that's in this pork loin for some flavor. I'm going to lay down some all-purpose flour, no seasoning added to it, all right? And then I am just going to press in a light coating of flour and shake it off. Then I am going to make up a wet batter. This is going to have 1 egg that I'm going to beat, a little bit of mustard, and I'm also going to throw in a touch of the flour. That little bit of flour is going to make this wet mixture thicker and it's going to help the breadcrumbs stick to it. I love to use panko breadcrumbs for the top coating because they are extra crunchy. So if you got some of them, baby, use them. I'm going to dip my pork chop into that egg mixture, and then I'm going to press in those panko breadcrumbs, and I'm going to shake off any excess breadcrumbs that are not stuck to the egg, because if you don't, they're just going to fall off into your frying oil and start to burn. When all of my pork chops are coated, I am going to heat up some oil in a cast iron skillet. Y'all know Sister Mabel, she always coming through. I'm going to put in my pork chops, and I'm going to allow them to fry on each side for about 4 minutes. When you start to see it turning golden brown, that's when you know you need to flip. You want to have your temperature on your eye at a medium. I know we're frying, but if you have it up super high, you are going to just burn the outside coating, and then the inside pork chop is not going to be cooked well. This is going to cook very quickly, so when it is done, go ahead and take it out and either place it on a rack or on a few paper towels. This pork chop is the bomb as it is, but baby, you know it also makes a good pork chop sandwich. And if you from the South, you know what I'm talking about. Go and get you some toast, a little buttery toast, put you a little piece of pork chop on there, and just go to town. All right, y'all, baby, I'm gonna show you how crunchy this is. Y'all know I don't be trying to eat on camera like that, but I'm gonna give y'all a little ASMR. If the fried pork chops is not for you, then we gonna make an all-around weeknight dinner winner, and that is some pan-seared pork chops. So I'm taking 4 of the thick pork loin chops, and I'm going to just season them with the seasoning of my choice. I'm going to use a little bit of this Dijon. This is an all-purpose, like garlic and onion based seasoning. You can use any one you want. I'll also be using some cayenne pepper, as well as some white pepper and some Tony's seasoning. Now I only have 4 pork chops, so I'm going to be doing this lightly. Whatever you decide to use, just make sure you season it to your family's taste. Ooh, y'all. Ooh, yeah. If you ain't sneezing, it ain't season. And I'm definitely sneezing right now. That pepper is in my nose. Okay, that looks good. Let's let this just come to room temperature for about 15 minutes. I heated a cast iron skillet to medium heat. I'm going to add in some olive oil as well as some butter, baby, for some flavor. Y'all know we love butter over here. And then I am going to put my pork chops in at first with the fat cap down. Baby, I just can't have no white rubber band fat cap on my meat. It got to look crispy and brown and melanated. Do you know what I'm talking about? So I like to do that just for a few minutes at first, and then I'll just rotate them around just to give it a little bit of color. And then I'm going to just throw them, flat down on that skillet on one side, and then add in some herbs. You guys know I love fresh herbs. If I don't have no fresh herbs, baby, I did not cook for you. Okay, these are straight from the garden. I'm also going to throw in a little bit of garlic, and I'm going to let it cook on each side for about 3 minutes. This is going to give you a nice color. My heat on my skillet is at about a medium high at this point. Now, once I have them browned, I'm then going to heat the oven to 350 degrees. I'm going to place this in the oven for about 6 to 7 minutes. Not too long, because of course you don't want to dry out your pork loin, but I just want to make sure they're cooked thoroughly. If you don't want to place them in the oven, then you can just cook them for a little bit longer on the stovetop. It's really up to you. Then I am going to take them out, and I am going to make a nice little pan gravy with those drippings. Those drippings are like gold, honey. They're so delicious. So I'm going to add in just a little bit of cornstarch mixed with water. I'm also going to put in some dry white wine and just like a small touch of water, just so that I can get the consistency that I want. But you definitely don't need to add any seasoning. This is like really well flavored, okay? And you just want to whisk this on a low heat until it comes together to be a very nice pan gravy. I let the pork chops rest for about 5 minutes before I added that gravy right on top. And then, honey, I'm going to cut into them. And baby, when I tell you that bite was every bit of delicious, oh my goodness. Tell me in the comments what you would serve for this recipe. I feel like with that little pan gravy, this is just crying out for mashed potatoes or maybe a little roll just to sop everything up. Let me know what you think. My last recipe idea is a whole pork loin roast. This one is really good, super family friendly, and very quick to pull together. I took one of the ends of the pork loin roast and I added some olive oil and I generously put a bit of salt, and then I'm going to add on this garlic butter seasoning. You can use this one or Kinder's Buttery Steakhouse, whichever one you have, and then I'm going to massage this in. I'm also going to add on some smoked paprika for color and a great smoky flavor. This is one of my favorite seasonings, actually. Then I am also going to use this roasted garlic and herb seasoning. I love this seasoning because it is super versatile. I use it on pork, chicken, beef, vegetables, whatever. And I love that it already has salt, pepper, garlic, and a bunch of herbs already in it. You definitely want to make sure you massage it into those crevices. Now, I know some of y'all about to blow me up in them comments talking about how you don't like to use MSG. Baby, you don't have to use it, all right? But I'm going to be using just a little bit of that MSG, aka accent, because it tastes good, all right? Just a pinch, maybe about 1/4 teaspoon, okay? Then I'm going to add on some Dijon mustard. Now, I know I'm losing some of y'all with the mustard, but you got to trust me when I tell you, not only does this not have a strong mustardy flavor, which is unbelievable because I'm using about 1/4 cup of mustard, but the Dijon also adds a lot of moisture to the pork, and it's also going to help the spice rub that I'm going to put on top at here and give a good crust to this hunk of meat. All right. So, baby, you just want to rub this around, and then you are going to put on about 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. I don't like to add too much. I don't like overly sweet meat, but on this piece of pork, about 3 tablespoons is not going to be too much. I'm then going to sprinkle on a little bit of smoked paprika and a bit more of that garlic and herb seasoning so that I'll have a nice color on the top of my roast. For my vegetables, I'm using carrots, fennel, and potatoes. You can use whatever vegetables you like, but you definitely want to roast some veggies along with this meal just so this can actually be a one pan complete meal. Fennel does not get a lot of love. This is like a ugly vegetable that a lot of people just don't pick up when you go to the store. But I promise you that the caramelized licorice flavor is a perfect pairing for pork. I have real love for this, ugly vegetable, one might say. I'm also going to use a couple of baby potatoes and I'm just going to cut them in half. I'm going to put all my vegetables into a 9x13 casserole dish. If you have a bigger family, you of course can do more vegetables and just put this in a bigger casserole dish or even a sheet pan. I am then going to add a little olive oil, salt, pepper. Of course, y'all know the fresh herbs is coming. All right. I have rosemary. I have thyme. I'm going to just spread this around. Then I'm going to mix everything all together to make sure all my veggies are well coated. And I'm going to make a little well in the middle for my pork loin to sit. On top of the pork loin, I'm going to add a few more herbs, a little bit extra thyme and rosemary. You could also add some fresh sage to pork. As you guys know, sage and pork are like a match made in heaven and would go so well. And then I am going to pop this into a 375-degree oven. I'm going to allow this to cook until the pork loin has an internal temperature of 145. Y'all, be careful that you do not overcook this pork loin. Pork loin is actually pretty similar to like chicken breast. If you overcook it, that line between dry and juicy is real fine. Mine took about 55 minutes to get to 140 degrees internal temperature, and I did check that with a meat thermometer. My vegetables were also nicely roasted at this point. I allowed the pork loin to rest for about 10 minutes before cutting into it. It's still going to be nice, warm, and juicy. And y'all, do y'all see what is going on? Honey, this crust is delicious. It is super juicy. Everybody loved this pork loin recipe. Let me know if you are going to try this. Also, let me know which recipe so far has been your faves. Now, I am going to show you how I preserve the pork. All right. Now, I know a lot of you guys are not going to be able to make all of this pork at one time. So I am going to vacuum seal whatever I have left. In the description, I am going to leave a link to the vacuum sealer bags as well as the vacuum sealer that I use to do this. I absolutely have been loving vacuum sealing because it is so easy. You want to make sure when you vacuum seal that you leave at least 3 inches of space, especially for meat that can be a little bit juicy. This pork loin is pretty dry, but I'm still going to add a little bit of paper towel to make sure that no juices get sucked up into my machine. And then I am going to vacuum seal this on the dry setting because there's not that much liquid, and the dry setting is going to get that seal really tight. However, if yours is liquidy, then you want to use the wet setting. I'm then going to date this and stick this in the freezer. Guys, let me know if you love this video. God bless you all for watching, and I'll see you next time in Kamira's Kitchen. Goodbye.